How's it going, guys? Welcome to a massive party. It's fantastic. I forgot the balloons and everything at the party store, unfortunately, but that doesn't matter because the party's all here, guys. It's the 100th video of my channel, A.F.C. Curtis, and this is gonna be a special occasion because I have questions that you guys asked me on my social media platforms. Tons of great questions. I love these questions, and I'm not just the only one that's going to be here in this party answering these questions. I have Mr. Mike Miller from the Premier Podcast. I got Gaffer Adam, Gaffer Jason from the Young Gaffers Podcast, and we're psyched. We're ready to go. How are you guys doing today?
Great, man. Thanks for having, and congrats.
Thank you.
I'm feeling good.
That's good. How about you, Mike? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the Centennial Club.
I know, number 100. You just had your 100th video or 100 show like July 1st. Now I'm right up there with you, man.
Exactly, but these young gaffers, they have more episodes than us two together, though.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt.
But this is visual. This is new for us. This is a visual medium.
Yeah. We have the faces for podcasting. So this is I was quite nervous going into this.
Yeah, we had to. And by the way, I demanded hair and makeup, and they never showed up, Curtis. So unfortunately, this is what you get to deal with. But can I just say for a second, I want to give you a huge congratulations. Number one, you, sir, are a national treasure, especially in the Canadian soccer community. You've got the personality, you've got the looks, you've got the knowledge, and I just want to say I can't speak for everyone, but every time I watch an A.F.C. Curtis video, I just want to hit that big red subscribe button. And one last thing is, if I was ever to run into you in a Five Guys burgers and fries, and you were eating a hot dog, I would come up and say hi. I would say hi.
Well, thank you.
Sub question: why hot dog?
By the way, folks, don't wait till the end of the episode. Just subscribe right now.
There you go. You got it. Hey, these guys are subscribers. I'm sure of it. And I know
right here.
Yeah.
Hit the notification
bell. You get notified each and every
episode. If you like it, hit the red subscribe button.
I just got endorsed by three superstars, three A-listers in the CPL community. And by the way, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for the congratulations. I honestly can't believe I made it 100 videos in like 90-something consecutive weeks. I haven't missed a single week since the start of this, which to me is probably one of the biggest accomplishments.
Not bad.
Quality stuff too. Consistent quality stuff.
Yeah. I remember when you first started, I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And now here we are.
This guy's gonna take all our fans. We were like,
he's gonna steal all our thunder because he's a vlogger.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I honestly, a fun fact for people who have been here since the beginning that are watching this video from like literally October of 2018, that very first video, which is the trailer, good luck finding it. It's gone. You can't, I might even delete those 2018 videos. I watched it recently, like a nostalgia thing. I don't know, depending on how I finally edit this, I might put little clips or whatever of those original videos in here, or the big moment videos in here, but it was disgusting. So I'm just scrapping that idea. We're moving on.
You need like a sizzle reel.
Oh yeah.
The first 100.
Gonna get you on TSN.
Yeah.
I should,
yeah.
But talking about sizzle, talking about quality, we got some sizzling, spicy quality questions right here, guys. We have quite a few questions, really good questions. You guys submit, like I said, on A.F.C. Curtis Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I got these guys here. We're all going to talk about it. Now, we're going to try and give the best answer we can in a short amount of time for these questions. But this is going to be quality questions with quality answers. I promise you guys that. So the first one here is Nick from Twitter. And he says, should the Canadian Championship open up to the USL 2 teams, considering we have League One Ontario and the PLSQ? Adam, I start with you.
Oh, okay. In my heart says yes, absolutely. My head says that the USL League 2 is meant to be sort of like summer ball for a lot of post-secondary players, right? The season only runs May to July. The championship is wrapped up in August, usually on or around August long weekend. You Counter that with League 1-0, which runs May to October, and the Canadian Championship itself wraps up in like September. I think a lot of those USL League 2 players will be back in school by the time the competition's getting hot and heavy. So in theory, I think it's great. I just think practically it would never work. I can't see it working.
I would say it also kind of flies in the face a bit of what Canada Soccer seems to be doing in terms of sanctioning. So I don't know if they would want that or not right now. I think they would prefer to have those teams at some point playing in Canadian League. What I would like to see is League One Ontario and PLSQ to open up the Canadian Championship to all clubs in those leagues. And of course, I would welcome those USL2 teams because more, I think, is always better with these things. I just don't know if it's realistic. I just don't know if it happened.
Mike?
I agree with Jason. I would like to see the Voyageurs Cup, the Canadian Championship, become an open cup. However, we know that most PLSQ and most League One Ontario won't be able to afford participation in such a tournament. That being said, to answer the question directly, USL2 teams, I'd love to see it, although the feasibility of it is next to impossible. So my solution would be to have them face each other in an alternate competition. Have all Canadian teams which are currently competing in the US system, except for the MLS clubs, obviously, compete in a competition of their own. Call it the Saskatchewan Soccer Summer Series, call it the Victoria Cup, call it whatever you want to call it. But I think that it would be interesting to see them compete against one another between now and when that second or third division, the Prairies and the West Coast can finally be established.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Canadian Championship.
Pardon?
The almost Canadian Championship.
It's like the Europa League, and then you got to make that to go to the Champions League. All right, so the next question here, also from Nick, by the way, because I didn't specify if you can only submit one question or not. I said questions, so he took advantage of it. He's asking another great question here, is when the CPL spearheads the Women's League into existence, should they look to TFC, Whitecaps, and Impact to have women's teams in the league to try and maybe raise interest, not only with fans, but future investors? Mike, I start with you.
You know, I wouldn't close any doors on this. As we speak, the highest level for women is U Sports or League One Ontario or PLSQ. If the MLS clubs want to invest in a senior league, in a Division One league for women, I welcome their investments.
Yeah, what about you, Jason?
Same. I think, of course. I mean, the more eyes you can get on it. I mean, there's already some history there. You know, the Whitecaps have had women's programs for years and years. So why not? Why not take advantage of that? There's a pipeline of talent. They've got infrastructure. It's a built-in audience. Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Adam?
Yeah, I agree with Jason. Also, why not? I mean, you look at the sort of the women's leagues over in Europe, and all of the Premier League clubs and the Championship clubs have ladies teams that several of which compete in the highest tier. And to Jason's point, they'll have the infrastructure to build that out. Why not? I think the more the merrier.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I think, and it also would help raise that interest, right, into building the women's brand of Canadian footy in Canada. So, I mean, why not take advantage of that, right? So the next question here is from MLS Writers on Twitter. MLS Writers, by the way, look very anonymous, so I don't want to tick them off because they could hack me or something. I don't know. But anyway, so
they look like the group Anonymous.
They do. So we got here. So their question is this is Curtis here, but I'm assuming they meant Bunch. Is there any way you could address the next set of expansions that includes Saskatoon, Lower Mainland, Montreal Suburb, Quebec City, Durham Region, Mississauga, Kitchener, Waterloo, etc.? So for this, I would just say I do have a future video lined up for this. This is also a subject that we're gonna kind of talk about maybe briefly here. I'll throw it to Jason in a second here. I also just want to point out too, I'll have a link in the description below, northernstarting11.com, which is a website that I post my videos on. They also have a great expansion tracker right now. They always keep up to date, the best of the knowledge and all that stuff. So it's all gathered right there. I'll have a link for that down in the description below. So check that out if you want to know more about future expansion. Also, like I said, I have a video coming out in the future about that. But anyway, getting to the question, Jason, do you know if there's any updates or any rumors that maybe recently, obviously with COVID slowing everything down, about these expansions? Or
honestly, Curtis, I'd say if anything, go listen to Michael Miller's podcast, the Premier Podcast, because he talks to all these guys pretty frequently. So he's got some really great recent episodes. That's probably the most up to date. So check those out. Adam and I talk about it on the Young Gaffers. You talk about it. We could sit here and talk about expansion rumors for ages and ages, but I haven't heard anything concrete that's set in stone. I think we've got our front runners, probably all of us, but I don't have any, huge, breaking news or anything like that.
Yeah. What about Adam? What's a place you would like to see first?
I'm the same as Jason. I definitely agree, and I know the commission has said this before. They need to have a club in the province of Quebec. I think it's absolutely essential, whether that's in Laval or another suburb of Montreal or Quebec City or what have you. All of these locations, the names have been coming up over and over and over again. I remember having a conversation with Michael Soberbauer, hope he's keeping well, back last August, and he rattled them all off. Toronto and area, Lower Mainland, Quebec, Saskatchewan, etc. So I think the league's probably in a first things first situation right now with COVID, and just trying to get the 2020 season up and running and make sure they're financially healthy and viable and so on and so forth. But we'll have to see.
Michael, Blainville to CPL.
Listen, I would love it, but anyone I've been speaking with on and off the record is pretty convinced that nothing will happen between, at the very least, 2022. Oh. So we have a good 2 years of speculating to do.
It's a lot of time. It's what we
do best.
Yeah. Well,
what'd you say, Jason?
Said it's what we do best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the name of our game, is speculation.
It's true. That's true.
I'm a McGill graduate. I would like to see it downtown Montreal at Percival's Molson Stadium. That's where I would like to see it.
I'd come out and visit. You catch a match. Great time.
That's 100%. Yeah, Quebec would be great. Quebec City or Montreal suburbs. Why not? Next question here is from CPL Wooden Spoon, which is, I think, also the item that I got a lot as when I was a kid. Was the wooden spoon. So why don't people care about the Challenge Trophy, and should the winner be able to play in the Canadian Championship? Jason, let's start with you.
Well, no disrespect, I don't think anybody knows what the Challenge Trophy is beyond people who are really into the soccer scene in Canada, right? So you don't know, it's the amateur competition that happens amongst provincial associations. I think BC won the most recent one in Newfoundland, if I'm not mistaken. I like the spirit of this question, because I think someone's thinking, it's like the FA Cup. It's a romantic idea. There's, hundreds of potential clubs, and this is amateur level, and they could be giant slayers, but they don't have the money, like you were saying, Mike. They wouldn't have the resources. I would love to see it in theory. I just think that's the problem. And in terms of people not knowing about it, for the same reason, I just don't think they don't have much money to market the Challenge Cup. It's really just it's inside baseball, I think.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same reason why the Max Midget Hockey Tournament that takes place every year in Calgary is not many people know about that unless they're diehard hockey fans. It's local. It's grassroots. Grassroots is fantastic. I remember watching the Jackson Cup final last year at Royal Athletic Park here in Victoria. That's the VISL championship. It was very well attended. There were actually a few thousand people there. Again, I love the romantic idea of inviting the Challenge Trophy winner to compete in the Canadian Championship. But again, with resources, scheduling, et cetera, I just don't think it's feasible.
One way you could open up the Canadian Championship is to turn earlier rounds into single round knockouts and have the lower league teams host these single round matches. I mean,
which would be good for the local teams, right? Because they could get good ticket sales if they hear a CPL club's coming to your local barn, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. Is it that complicated to achieve? Who knows? But if it were to be achieved, that's the only way that it could be achieved, in my opinion.
I mean, you can barely get the MLS clubs to agree to go play in CPL stadiums. So I don't know.
I think it would be tough. I mean, I don't even know, like, if a lot of those clubs even have what you might even term a barn. You know what I mean? Like, it's
literally a barn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it would be tough. I mean, I love the idea, but I think it would be very, very tough, especially because the season here is shorter too, right? In Europe, like the FA Cup is played basically over the course of 9 months. Yeah, exactly. So,
but an amazing cup with a long and storied history, though, nevertheless.
100%. The Challenge Trophy, and I believe the women's equivalent is the Jubilee Trophy.
The Jubilee Trophy, yeah.
So moving on here, the next question we have is Ed Johnson on Twitter. So he asks, are you excited about the CPL restart? And he's very hopeful. He was asked this question, by the way, several days before we recorded this. So he's probably hoping out for a decision. Or are we still waiting for a decision for a location? So as far as I know, everything is just rumors and speculation, but I think they are still looking for a location. I think Dwayne Rollins tweeted out that Winnipeg is not in the running anymore. Other than that, everything is rumor and speculation. Mike, do you got anything on this, or what do you think is maybe holding back the league restart?
I don't even know if they know which direction they're gonna go with this, and that's the scary part.
What do you mean? Like location or format?
No, the format. The format honestly is. The format honestly could be figured out in one meeting. The real issue here is the location. I mean, we were talking about Victoria or Langford at the beginning, then Winnipeg, then Charlottetown, and now there doesn't seem to be a clear front runner anymore. So I don't know. I guess we're all back to square one in terms of the location. But once we figure out the location, then it's going to be easy to determine a format.
Yeah, Adam, what do you think?
I'm very excited. I've heard a few different things from what I would say are very credible and reliable sources. I think the location is actually pretty hammered down from what I understand. Yeah. But I mean, I think everybody needs to exercise patience, right? I mean, very few sports leagues in North America have restarted. It's a huge endeavor. Look at what's happened to MLS. I know it's like maybe apples and oranges comparing the U.S. and Canada, but I mean, it's a huge logistical undertaking. I think the CFL is maybe the most logical comparison to make. And I mean, the CFL has no clue either, right? What they're going to be doing. Hopefully we hear soon. I think it's important because like the MLS's back tournament has proven that you basically get one crack at this to do it right. And, already their tournament structure's kind of like blown up with two clubs having to pull out. So, yeah.
Jason, where do you want to see this location? Your backyard maybe, or space?
It would almost be torturous if it was in my backyard because I don't think I'd be allowed to go watch it. I could maybe hear it if I'm close enough, So I think wherever it ends up, I mean, Langford seems like a good option. Charlottetown's an interesting option, which would be great for that location, I think, and the people there. But I think it's so tough, this one, because it's so mixed. Even look at MLS restart. Not everybody is behind that. Players are pulling out. Whole teams are pulling out. You got Seattle supporters, basically, giving flack to MLS for even doing it and putting players in danger. I mean, the one thing I will say is, I've gone back and forth on this. I will say I'm excited. And I think, in a sense, I feel like I need to be, because if we don't do it now, I don't know when we would do it and what it would look like. You know, it's there's no guarantee that a year from now they're going to have a regular looking season. You know, we could have just another version of this. So I'm excited for it. I have a feel, you know, I don't know where it's going to be, but anyway, I just hope they do it safely.
Yeah, I think that's, at the end of the day, it's all about safety, and you want to make sure the players are safe, right? I mean, these are not just like players that you watch on TV. These are actual human beings with families and stuff. You don't want to see anybody get injured or hurt or sick, God forbid. So yeah, as long as they do it safely, that's all I'm hoping for. Next question here is from Jeff Salisbury on Twitter there. He asks, where do each of you see the CPL by the World Cup 2026? Of course, that's in Canada, US, and Mexico. That's coming up in 6 years. For me, I think CPL maybe has about 14 teams by then, maybe 16, depending on if we can get some more stadiums up and running. But Jason, what do you think? Where do you see it by 2026?
Hi, Jeff. First, anyway, I think I'm going to predict 4 teams by then. I really hope it doesn't fold by then. I really hope COVID and everything else keeps the league sustainable. So I want to say the league will be basically financially stable and sustainable. Maybe 4 new teams, franchises, whatever you want to call it. And I think they really need to hold on, because that 2026 influx of money is going to be massive. That's what the investors are there for. That's what Canada Soccer Business was partly created for, right? I think that influx of money coming in for 2026 could just like you have a J curve on this league, right? So just hang in. Hopefully this COVID stuff, we kind of sort it out, expand a little, grow incrementally. And then by 2026, I mean, hopefully it would do what the 94 World Cup did for MLS.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Mike?
Yeah. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Emma. So I think by 2026, we're going to have 10 healthy clubs, but not more than that. I think that the expansion boom is going to happen after 2026. But, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm noticing that Canadian Premier League management, Canadian Premier League executives, Canadian soccer business is extremely patient in terms of awarding franchises. They're not taking NASL type risks, right? They're really taking their time, and they could have expanded in a whole bunch of markets easily, like Montreal, like Toronto, like Vancouver, but they decided to wait it out and let the league hit its stride. And I don't think that philosophy is going to change between now and 2026.
How about you, Adam?
My pseudo short and concise answer is the league will be healthy. I think there'll be a good dozen or so clubs, maybe 14. I think what we'll see ideally is the league having. We may not have the league might not have a lot of players on the Canadian men's national team roster, but hopefully, I think we'll have seen a lot of talent having been sold to bigger clubs and leagues around the world. And so we'll see a lot of Canadian Premier League alumni on the Canadian men's national team.
Yeah, I think that's what's probably going to happen. I think they get sold off and make their way onto the men's national team full time. Next question here is from Big Country Footy on Twitter. And they ask, should MLS and CPL abandon the 2020 season? Is there a viable path out of this COVID-19 mess? Adam, I start with you.
Well, first of all, because I don't want to dox anybody on your show, hi, Big Country. I won't say your first name. I think that's a great question. I think a lot of this stuff depends on local and federal government, right? Municipal government, state or provincial level government. I think the MLS restart is in a bit of a mess, with 2 clubs having pulled out already, like Jason mentioned, a number of players seeking not to play, and because they went with that sort of World Cup style tournament, now you have 2 groups that don't have the same number of clubs as the other. So you kind of take the spirit of fair competition out of it, and then what does it become about? Like watching, I don't know if you guys have watched the matches yet, but you got the giant Adidas logo in the middle of the pitch, right? And of course, Disney has a vested interest in the matches being played because they want them broadcast on ESPN, right? So the MLS, I'm a little sketchy on, to be honest. It'll be really interesting to see how this progresses and how many folks get sick. I think other sports leagues, I think the NBA and the NHL will be watching the MLS to see how things play out, and I think that'll affect their respective restarts. MLB. Should the CPL abandon the 2020 season? I don't think so. I think there's certainly no international travel, and the players are all situated in a country that is deemed, safe by the EU and other countries around the world. We've done a great job of handling the virus here, I think, relatively. So that's my answer.
Yeah, Jason?
I pretty much echo what Adam says. I don't know if I can add much to that. I agree. I would say CPL, I do think they should go ahead, provided they can, make it safe. I think it's it's opportunistic in a sense, because if we have other leagues not playing, or at least not playing in the way we've come to expect, CPL all of a sudden gets a little bit of mind share, right? A little critical mass. So I think that's a good thing. MLS, I'm iffy on too. Honestly, everything about it seems like a little, I don't know. One thing I will say is that it's important to always keep the finances in mind, because there's certain obligations they might have. There's certain payments they're waiting on, and their sponsors, commercial revenues, TV deals, broadcasting, all that stuff. They're making decisions based on that revenue too. So we don't know all the behind the scenes there. And I think that at the end of the day, it's a business. So I think that is important to keep in mind. Instead of, there's often this idea that it's a bunch of fat cats laughing their way to the bank. That's not necessarily, I think, how these decisions are made.
I definitely agree. Mike, quickly before we move on to the next question, any more input on that?
I agree with the Gaffers.
Yeah, they know what they're talking about for sure. So actually, I have a good question. For you guys. This is with COVID and everything. Looking at the Canadian Premier League, my question to you guys is: how do you see COVID-19 impacting the transfer market for CPL clubs? Because obviously CPL is a selling league. Because of this uncertainty with cash now and the winter, will players travel to Europe or South America or even the US? Do you see some star CPL players who we maybe think would be sold after 2020? Do we see them staying another season or two because of COVID?
Was this an open floor?
Or Mike, we'll start with you.
All right. I mean, it's kind of tough to show what you're capable of when you're not playing, right? So I think that the transfer market is going to be a pretty weird one between 2020 and 2021. Players are either going to stay put or not going to be, or their options are not going to be picked up by their clubs. But I don't think that you're going to see those spectacular transfers that we've seen, like Emilio Estevez, for example.
True. Jason, how about you?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm going to try and be really quick about it if I can. It's a great question. I think it's going to be it will really impact all of the leagues. It's like a trickle down effect, because the big clubs pay the smaller clubs for transfers. They're not going to be doing that. I mean, they can't even really send their scouts out because of international travel issues, right? So, and then those smaller clubs, they sell down. So that's a problem. Revenues are dried up, right? Like, you've got the major revenue streams are like the gate, like game day revenue, commercial revenue, TV deals. Well, the gate is gone. And a lot of TV deals are like compromised. Sponsorships then are impacted. So there's just no money, right? And it's almost like you're going to see deflation. You're going to have this huge supply of players who could move, but no one wants to be spending money. So I think we might see wage cuts. We might see innovation in how we do this. Like we might see more swap deals. Yeah. We might see more sort of like loans, maybe. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the transfer market looks like. And the one last piece I'll say is that the lower league clubs, especially, they're going to be impacted because they get so much of their revenue is match day revenue. And without that, I mean, that's tough, So we'll have to see how it pans out. But yeah, I think it's the whole transfer market on a global level is going to be impacted by this.
Yeah. How about you, Adam?
Well, first of all, I want to say, Curtis, I can see, like me, you're starting to sweat because we're not allowed to have the AC on while we're filming. It's getting hot in here.
Me too.
And Jason, yeah. I think so. I think Canada again, just to sort of piggyback on the answer to the last question. It's deemed a safe country, right? So I think our players will be the players playing in Canada will be deemed as coming from a safe country and could probably likely travel very easily to the EU for trials or transfer moves and so on and so forth. I think the biggest question for me is like, where are they going to play? Because again, we don't really know what the plans are. I mean, we don't really know what the plans are for next season yet, right? So we don't know when the leagues are going to start, what the windows are going to look like. I mean, they've already made there have already been provisos been made. I know in England, with player contracts because they were all set to expire at the end of May, right? And so, there were a lot of accommodations made to ensure that players can still play through the summer months and get paid. I'd read a lot. It was earlier on before all these restarts where, I think the new norm through COVID is going to be the free transfer because exactly touching on what Jason said. I mean, I don't think a lot of clubs will be looking to spend any money, and they're talking even big clubs like the Man Uniteds and the Real Madrids of the world. Like they don't have money to spend on player transfers. Then I don't think like second division Belgian clubs will. You know what I mean? So. I think you're going to see a lot of free transfers. I don't think the virus itself, in terms of the safety piece, I don't think that will impede player movement. I think it's just where are they going to go, and who will be playing.
Yeah, and who will sign them? Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it puts a lot of uncertainty where we just don't know. And speaking about a lot of uncertainty, actually, the next question here is from Mike F on Twitter. And he asks, if there is not a widely available vaccine for 3 years, what will be different about CPL 2.0 when it restarts? And so, just in saving time, because we did kind of discuss COVID a few questions ago, if we can just quickly, in like a sentence, maybe just sum up what we think COVID and what we think right now without this vaccine for the next 3 seasons, how we think the CPL will look. For me, I think it'll be like a shorter, almost like tournament-style season for a month or two. How about you, Jason?
I think so. I mean, I'd love to see it look like how the Premier League looks. I've been watching those matches and I quite enjoy them. You almost forget that there's no crowd. So if they can work out something that looks a little like that, I think that's great. Again, the big thing for me is what are these clubs going to do about the match day revenue? I think that's a big concern. And I think that they have to maybe find another innovative way to get fans spending money and involved and somehow feel part of it, because that's the big question mark for me.
Adam?
I mean, to me, again, I'll bring it back to something I said earlier. It depends on government, right? It depends on government at so many different levels. We're seeing second lockdowns in some places in Melbourne, Australia, other parts of the States that were quick to reopen. We don't know if there will be a second wave here in the fall, what that looks like. So too tough to answer. I abstain.
Mike?
I'm not a public health expert, so it's very difficult for me to answer a question based on the premise that I have little to absolutely no knowledge on. So yeah, I'll skip too.
Okay. Next question. There's obviously, just due to us being COVID season, we're going to get this kind of sort of form of question but Abba, not the group Abba, but the person Abba on Twitter asks, my question is, what is the latest plan regarding CPL return? Hope to hear from you on July 14th. Thanks. So with that, I think the latest plan on the CPL return, we kind of discussed a bit earlier in the video, but in just a brief summary, I'll kind of just say right now we're just kind of waiting on an announcement from the CPL. I'm sure, still working on it. One thing I do want to say, I know a lot of people, players, fans, I know myself, like we've all been frustrated that we haven't heard anything. But I mean, I know from my personal past as a guy that I used to put on events in just a city that was hard, and it took like a month plus of planning just to put on events in a city, especially a decently big event. I can only imagine how tough it is for this league to put on events over a month to 2 month period. I just did it for an event that lasted 1 to 2 days, over a weekend maybe. But for the CPL to do it over a course of a month, plus to get 8 different teams in 8 different cities over across the 5 different provinces, get them all in the one area, and then make sure they're all safe doing it, and make sure all these other things are hit. For me, it is frustrating, but you got to understand that this is just tough times. And then, if we can even have a season, I mean, my hats are off to the CPL for even being able to organize this in such a crazy time. So that's kind of, I'll just quickly answer for all of us, and just because we, again, like we discussed earlier in the video, that question. Next one here is from Jack OB on Twitter. And so he says, who do you think is the brightest youngster in the league, and why is it Prince Amanda? So we all have one guy, I'm sure. So just say your one guy, and if you can, briefly say 3 reasons, if you can, why. Okay, we'll start with Adam, because I know you really want to go on this one.
Yeah, and because Jason didn't answer the other question in 1 sentence only, I'm just going to go for a little bit longer. First of all, hi, Jack. I've only met Jack once. We got to have a beer together at Vancouver International Airport, I think it was. Anyway, nice dude. Okay, so I think Pacific PFC obviously deserve a lot of credit, and it'll be interesting to see how actually their youngsters from last year progress with a year under their belt, more mature, they've all gotten a lot of reps in. I think, though, you got to give it to Farsi with Cavs. See if he follows in the steps of A.F.C. He's a great fullback. He's fantastic with his feet. He's a very creative player and generates a lot of chances. Everybody's going to have so I say him. I mean, everybody's obviously going to be watching Copeland with at Ottawa. Yeah, and then I think a dark horse could be Abdou Samake, who signed with PFC. He had a stellar collegiate career. He's 23, so he's a little bit of an oldie but goodie age-wise, relatively speaking, to the league, but he's still pretty young. It'd be cool to see how he makes a jump.
How about you, Jason?
All right. Well, I'm gonna give a few too, because I want to. So I'm sorry. Prince Amanda, first of all, great player, great prospect, great mentality, and a great debut. So I'm not taking anything away from him. But my 2 runners-up are going to be, and I don't know if this is fair or not, Paulo Sabak. I mean, come on, he's the new Borges potentially. Long-range passing, vision, creative. I mean, he's got it all. He comes from an insane academy that produced the likes of like De Bruyne and Courtois. Then you've got and by the way, that's Forge, if you don't know. Arabine Peppel on Cavalry, 5 goals in 5 games from Foothills, young kid, explosive, smart, full of pace, and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. is high on him, so he's one to watch. But my number one, and I know all of you guys, it's Antoine Copeland. It's got to be. I mean, this kid is the real deal. All I'll say is go watch his highlight reel. I mean, he's kind of diminutive, but like no one comes close to him. He's playing a different game than everybody else. So, and he's only like 16, I think, and he's in a pipeline now to Atletico. So he's one to watch. Antoine Copeland is my pick.
How about you, Mike?
Antoine Copeland, 16 years old, and he's at his 2nd professional season. He already had 3 appearances with the Ottawa Fury, and his teammates are all high on him. I did an interview with Tiago de Freitas, actually, which is going to be released on Monday, July 13th. And Tiago himself told me how impressed he was with him. It's not just a matter of what we see as fans. His peers are impressed with him as well. And he's level-headed. He's humble. He knows that he has to pay his dues. And he actually had a trial with Red Bull Leipzig before coming back to North America. I mean, that kid's going places, and apparently we're going to see him representing Canada, I think, at the U17 level very, very soon.
Yeah, no. And now I'm going to do one that nobody mentioned here. And I'm going to see if I can pronounce the name, too. It's going to be a fun little game we're going to play. So it's a defender on Atletico Ottawa, English defender, by the name of Vachon Neuville. I hope I didn't butcher the name. I'm sorry if I did. But actually, when I was talking to, he came up through the West Ham Academy, and he played briefly, I believe it was, with Jordan Brown, who I did an interview with a little while ago. And off of recording, we were just talking, and he actually mentioned him, and he believes he plays left back, and Jordan Brown believes that he could be the best under 21 player in the league this year. So I mean, and he played with him on for a short while in the West Ham Academy. So I gotta take his word for it. But I mean, like if you get that much in a brief period of time, a good rub onto other people, and they think, wow, this kid's that good already. And that was a few years ago. I mean, he must have developed into something special. And I think Atleti, when it comes to international signings with Atleti Ottawa this year, I think Atleti Madrid, they definitely maybe have a bit more of a better advantage at signing athletic international players than maybe the other clubs do, for right now at least. So I hold him in high regard too, just because of that, of him coming out, Jordan Brown that is, and telling me that. So I was like, oh, okay. That's impressive for an older guy to say, yeah, this guy stood out to me the most. And this was years ago again, right? We don't know how much better he is now a few years later. So that's my pick for Brightest Young Stars coming up in the CPL. And I think the only international player really that that really stood out to me on as a youngster, at least on Atletico Ottawa, that I thought would be like, could potentially break out as a big superstar in the CPL. But the next question here is, this one is actually from Instagram now, and Kotse Bryson, again, I hope I didn't butcher that name too bad, but Atletico, and then this goes to Atletico Ottawa here. They ask Atletico Ottawa to win the league in their first season. Where do you think they will end up in the table? Again, before looking at the rosters today, I was like, I don't know, but again, I think they have some underrated international players on there that could make a difference. I don't know if it's championship worthy yet. We have to still actually see him play. But how about you, Mike? What do you think about Atletico Ottawa's chances?
We've seen it in the 2019 season. Chemistry is a factor that gets overlooked and underrated a lot. And last year we had all seven franchises were brand new. All seven rosters were brand new. This year it's going to be six, because Halifax is like a brand new team in and of itself. But I don't see Atletico Ottawa gelling early enough in the season to be on top of the table at the end of the season. I don't think they're gonna finish last though, but I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't see them in the top three.
So mid-table. How about you, Jason?
I actually agree with everything Mike just said. I think it's hard to predict. I don't know if I'd be putting bets on it, but chemistry is a big part of it. And I mean, they might have some difference makers that'll turn some heads, but at the end of the day, they're kind of like a year behind everybody else in terms of the chemistry department. So mid-table, I think.
Mid-table, Adam?
I'm going to slightly disagree, because I think they have fleshed their roster out in a very interesting way. I mean, it's obviously, of course, fully loaded with Canadian talent, some intriguing internationals. As we just discussed, they've got the most exciting young talent in the league, and they've got a couple of league vets who, by league vets I mean played in the league last year, and Ben Fisk and Malik Hamilton, right? So they know what to expect. I think they can impart that on the other fellas. Mista doesn't have a huge coaching record, but he does have a lot of experience, on the developmental side as a youth coach. So I'm going to say, if it was sort of like a single table format, if that's what we're going to be doing here, I think they could be in the mix for third place, honestly. Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Moving on here to the next question. It's one of our final questions today. It's from...
Can I add something to Adam's point, please?
Okay.
If Atletico Ottawa finishes in third place, we're going to have an all-Ontario playoff.
Oh,
interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Forge on top, like York on top, Forge second, and
No love for
Atletico third.
Calgary. Oh, wow.
No Cavs?
Yeah. No, I'm actually with Mike on this one. I think York is going to shock a lot of people. I think they're the most improved club, especially with Telfer coming back.
100%. But you can't disregard the Cavs, I think.
No, that's why I
Cavs
don't
even
think
better.
Atletico is going to finish third. By the way, I think it's going to be the same top three as last year.
Okay, I agree. So next question here from Graham Ginkola here, who Graham, by the way, always keeps me updated on Instagram on the latest news for Jonathan David and Alphonse Davies. They're always the first. I didn't even know about David possibly going to the French league there until Graham told me. Like he was on that ball. So thank you, Graham, for always keeping me up to date. Really appreciate it. And but with that, his question here is: if you were a CPL player, what team would you play for? So for me, I really like the Atletico Ottawa kit, and if I'm basing it on kits, it's either PFC or Atleti Ottawa. But I'm from Winnipeg, and then it would always be a cool dream to play for your hometown club. So maybe it's Valor. I think it'd be Valor. How about you, Jason?
Well, first of all, Curtis, if I was your agent and you were basing it on a kit, I would advise you not to do that. And then I would say, if I'm thinking about my future, it's Ottawa actually, because they've got the pipeline. I mean, the second you move to Ottawa, you see Atletico Madrid, and you've got all of the infrastructure, the knowledge, the institutional knowledge that comes along with that, like the trade-off of the technical staff. So, I mean, if I'm Antoine Copeland, that's where I want to be right now.
How about you, Adam?
I gotta agree with Ottawa for a career development standpoint. Ottawa, my heart says hometown club, so I'd probably wait until they bring a team to suburban Montreal, or I'd even play a couple hours up the highway in Quebec City. If it were, but really, I also I think Coach Hart is such a wise man, and I think he'd be a great player he'd be a great coach to learn under as a player. And I've always wanted to go to Halifax, so I gotta go with Wanderers.
How about you, Mike?
How old am I supposed to be in this fantasy world?
Any age you want to be.
Because if I'm 36 years old, if
16 up though. You have to be able to sign a pro contract.
If I'm 36 years old, I'd like to go to Pacific because I've never been to British Columbia, and I hear a lot of good things about the West Coast, and I don't like winter at all. I don't like winter at all, and I think that I'd be able to hack West Coast winters a lot more than Montreal winters.
Yeah.
But if I'm 16 years old, Atletico Ottawa, of course. Why wouldn't you want to play for Atletico Ottawa? That's the gateway to Europe right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I was thinking about this question long and hard. I would play for any club. So just throwing out there if you guys need a spare. But anyway, but I put a lot of thought actually in this question more than any, to be honest with you, because I seriously thought about it. I can't do York or Forge or Cavalry because they're loaded. I wouldn't get any playing time. Atleti Ottawa, I was maybe, but I feel like they might swing a little bit more international at times. And I was just I can't say no to my hometown club, so it has to be Valor. So hometown prairie boy.
Hashtag for Valor.
Yeah. Hashtag
By
for
the way,
Valor. Yeah.
I will say that the Ottawa kit did factor into my decision slightly.
It's a nice kit. That's why I'm wearing it.
It's a great kit. It's a great kit. It might be my favorite.
When they unveiled it though, did it surprise you what it looked like? Was it a big surprise? The design?
No.
It's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. Nice.
I wasn't crazy about the lines, and then I got it in person. I was like, oh yeah, that's my favorite kit now. Just wearing it, I feel special.
Nice.
So, and the next question, actually, we're gonna skip one question here. We'll go back to that question, but since we're talking about kits, we'll talk about this next question here from Vincent Gillespie on Instagram. This person asks, do you know when the CPL will release their away kits? Am I just living under a rock? No, you're not living under a rock.
Or we all are.
Or we all end up being under the rock. I don't know. Mike, how about you? What do you think? When do you think they'll release the away kits?
After the 2020 season schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about
I think
you,
they're
Jason?
going to start with that.
Yeah.
Yes. What's today? I'm gonna say, what's the over/under on this? July 20th.
By July 20th. How
Wow.
about you?
Total shot in the dark.
Okay. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think I have no idea. I know there was the concept was there several months ago, and then I saw Cavalry had sort of teased on their social media that the away kit was coming soon, and that was several weeks ago. And it makes me wonder if the idea that was in play for the away kits has been scrapped in favor of something a bit simpler. I'm gonna agree with Mike and say I think they're gonna put the plan together for the restart first, and then they'll worry about the away kits. So I'm maybe late July we'll hear something. That's my guess.
Do you think that they might just scrap the away kit altogether, especially if it's just 1 month quick, ready and go tournament? And I'm assuming with COVID, maybe production might be slow for next season. Maybe they just hold off and save time for producing instead of 2 kits for each team for next season. They only have to produce the 1. Do you think that maybe they just scrap away kits and just stick with the home kit?
So you mean using the same as last year?
No. Like they'll use the home kits for this season, and they'll just only wear the home kits.
But
Like
you'll have
throwing it
color
back to-
conflicts. You'll have color conflicts.
With who? Other than Atleti Ottawa, I guess red and white, and Cavs are mostly red.
Pacific and Halifax. I mean,
You do raise a good point though. Like I actually thought about this when I was noodling the questions last night. It's possible that they might just keep like I don't know, right? Like I don't know how many of last year's away kits are still floating around because all the clubs are bombing them out. I don't know if they can get stock in. Like it's an idea though. What if they just scrap the brand new away kits for 2020 altogether? Because if you don't have several thousand people going to each match to fork over their hard-earned Canadian doll hairs, then what's the I don't know what the point is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the economics behind how feasible that would be for them.
Especially if they only wear the kit 3 times in 1 month, and then the kit's done and over with, right? It's not evergreen enough that it's marketable and dollar-wise at least. That's just my thinking. But anyway.
the MLS keeps their kits
Yeah.
for 2 years, and they just do a rotation. Like every year, 1 year you change the home, the next year you change the away, and they keep them for 2 years. Maybe the CPL can do the same.
Yeah.
Possibly. So final question of this special, and it's been lovely talking to you guys, by the way, of these questions. Thank you for coming on. So the final question here from ISO_sports on Instagram is, do you think MLS will ever have the All-Star game? Oh, sorry. I think okay. Mine says MLS on here, but I think it's, do you think CPL will ever have All-Star team/game potentially play MLS? What do you guys think? Starting with Adam this time.
You picked the best looking guy to answer the last question first. Thank you, Curtis. No, I don't think so. I think that the league has done a number of unique things to try and differentiate from sort of the traditional sort of European model, that most soccer fans or football fans out here know and love. But I think an all-star game would be a step too far. I think even, when it was sort of noodled back and forth for that long, whether they should even consider going with playoffs, I think an all-star game it would be just too much. So I say no.
Jason?
I agree. Also, the golf inequality is just too much right now. I mean, it would have to be way in the future. And if it did happen, we'd have to maybe be a little cautious about that, because maybe they have designs on some kind of a super league. When you see, Liga MX play MLS, there's been talks of that. They did the All-Star match. So I don't think so. I think maybe we'll see something where it's like we play some random other club from around the world, which some people really hate, but that could be an option. I hope I don't mind All-Star games too, honestly. I know a lot of people just despise it, but it's kind of fun. Whatever. I think it's cool to show off the talent of the league, but no, I don't think we'll see an MLS versus CPL one.
How about you, Mike?
I hate all-star games in every single sport. I don't see the point. It's stupid. These players, they don't even give their 100% out there. And a lot of them are trying to get out of it anyway by either faking injuries or coming up with excuses. So we did good in 2019 by not having it. All-star game, I'm not having it.
Not having it.
What about the home run derby? Don't you want to see dingers?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I love the MLB All-Star Game because there's skin in the game, right? Like the league that wins the MLB All-Star Game gets home field advantage in the World Series. So to me,
That's
that is
fairly recent, A,
that's
and B, it only
100%.
favors a handful of teams, really, because if you're dead last or you're not a playoff team, what do you care?
Yeah, but I mean, but even the guys on the last place team still try. I concede that it's very recent, but I think that's a good way to put meaning into an All-Star game. But otherwise, I'm not the biggest fan either.
Yeah,
Unless you
but
got like a showboaty sport like b-ball or something. Unless
in the
you're
early in the early years of CPL, though, don't you think it would help get people's interest in the match? You know, like you see them play some well-known, you know,
Millwall.
Millwall. I don't know.
I think I'd rather see summer friendlies with like decent level clubs like in CPL. Like I'm not talking Premier League level. I'm talking like let's get Celtic and Rangers in here. I would go see Valor versus a Celtic game or Valor versus Rangers. That's
FC Edmonton versus Colo Colo.
But would you go to the inaugural CPL All-Star Game versus Le Havre?
Maybe just to go. I mean, I'm with Jason though in a way where I know the team players don't try, and I'm not too big on the NHL All-Star Game, but for whatever reason, I do like the MLS All-Star Game when they play a team from Europe. That does kind of get to me, where it's like the best of this league showcased. I don't mind it for the CPL though. I would think I would rather just take a summer friendly for your local club versus like a one of those kind of hipster clubs. Ajax, please come over. That'd be pretty cool. Ajax would be sick if they had a summer tour in Canada, but that's just me. But anyway, so that's the questions today, guys. Thank you for submitting your questions. We're pegging for a half hour today. We could double that to an hour, but that's okay because we had some fantastic fun here today. We broke down these questions. We gave you some quality answers for some quality questions. I want to thank Mike from the Premier Podcast being on here, Gaffer Jason, Gaffer Adam from the Young Gaffers Podcast. You guys are great. Thank you so much for coming on. Adam or Jason, did you guys want to plug Young Gaffers?
Sure. Yeah. Please, if you've never heard the Young Gaffers, we're a podcast, and we are available everywhere good podcasts are found. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can do that. We're at Young Gaffers on Twitter, Young Gaffers Podcast on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You name it. We just want to spread the word and chat footy with you. So if you have any questions, it's one of our specialties, I would say.
I'll say this, listening to the Young Gaffers, it's the most relaxing podcast I've ever listened to. Honestly, I actually get very relaxed listening to you guys and talk about your Converse and stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then it's very relaxed. And Mike, and I'm going to switch to Mike's podcast, the Premier Podcast I love too, because it's very like informational, to the point. And he brings on like really great guests every single weekend. And there was, through the whole COVID season, by the way, for people who might not know, he produced an episode every single day. Every single day. It's pulling hairs to produce one video a week for my channel. I can only imagine every single day, Mike. Mike, where can they find the Premier Podcast?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at CPL Podcast. And the podcast itself is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and any other mainstream application out there. And if you want to read my views on soccer outside of Canada, my personal account at Mike Miller FC, I talk a lot about La Liga. I was actually invited on the Footy Talks this week to talk about La Liga, but for the Premier Podcast, at CPL Podcast.
Perfect. I'll have a link as well to these guys, both these shows, in the description below, as well as their social media handles, so you guys can follow them. They produce great content, top of the line content. I would call them experts. That's what I would say. But along with that, guys, I said it, so it must be true.
We've said it ourselves, though.
Oh.
Also.
Well, it's definitely true then. You can just call yourself an expert, and you're just an expert now, as we know. But anyway, guys, it's been a great 100 episodes. Thank you for watching. If you've been from the beginning with me, with your old 100 videos, the next 100 videos, I promise, will be much better. We're going to have some live stuff in there whenever this season comes, because it will happen. Thank you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe. You know the whole drill down there. Leave a comment just to talk CPL. I'll talk with you guys in the comment section. Other than that, guys, thank you so much, you three, for joining me today. Thank you guys at home or wherever you are watching this. Appreciate the support and love. We'll see you next week.